one of the things that I really liked is how you worked in kind of the mysterious Shield Maiden lore. It's a very uncertain thing. It's very nebulous in the books. Like Éowyn says she's part of this tradition. And the only other thing we really have is an earlier draft that's in History Middle Earth where she talks about a specific battle that would be like 400 years before Éowyn, where they rode to battle against the Easterlings. So yeah, I was very curious to hear more about, you know, the decision making process of how best to incorporate that Shield Maiden lore, and you know, showing the I feel like there was some restraint shown where you kind of left it a little mysterious too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously Éowyn was going to, you know, once that decision was made that she was going to narrate the film, I think, you know, Shield Maiden tradition was going to come in there. But to be honest, I remember talking to you guys because I bought this, so we were just in Oxford. I was talking at Merton College, and I had a memory, and I think I talked to you guys about it, and Phoebe really liked it. There was a tradition where I thought it was Brythonic tribes, but apparently it was Germanic tribes, where the men would be fighting, and if any of them tried to flee the field of battle, the women would push them back into the war.
Oh, really?
And when all the men were dead, they would pick up the shields and the swords and start fighting. And I think that just sparked something in you guys.
Yeah, the action in the most desperate time of need. And when, as you say, when all the men are slain, the women take up arms. We really took that to heart. And
yeah,
Héra is a big reflection of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the phrases that really stuck, you know, because it's mentioned early on, and then it kind of comes back later in the film that when all the men are gone, you know, the women take up arms and everything. I thought that was a really, really cool concept. And, you know, I look at Héra, how she is in the film, and it struck me because she's not like Éowyn, to me at least. She's not kind of like itching for a fight as much as Éowyn is. By the time we meet her, you know, in the films, she's kind of ready to, you know, she wants to be part of the action, whereas Héra's like her first thing that she says, "Hey, let me be a messenger." You know, she just wants to help, and it's kind of forced into the fight, really.
I think it was important for us to try and tell a different type of, have a different type of protagonist, a different type of story to follow, and sort of have a character who, given the challenges that they're facing, would have a sort of unique answers or unique insight into how to get her people to survive these dire circumstances.
Yeah. Now I'm curious with some of the decisions that you guys had to make. I'm sure, you know, with Tolkien, like the Shield Maidens thing, there's things that are just kind of left mysterious and open-ended, and you know, there can be a temptation, like how much give and take, you know, how much do we explain and fill in gaps, and how much do we leave gaps and like leave things a little bit more mysterious? Was that part of the conversation at all with some of the decisions you had to make on this film?
Yeah, we did a lot of that. We were trying to stay as authentic as possible to what we know of the Rohirrim from not just the appendices, but you know the histories of that people and their culture that's scattered throughout the book as a whole. But I think also, you know, we wanted the outer world of Middle Earth to always be there, and so when we talked about those orcs, because it felt like you could almost not do we had that discussion, could not do a Middle Earth film without having some orcs in there. It just felt wrong somehow. So what role could they play? And it was around the notion that for the Dunlendings, you know, which is in the appendices, that belief that he is a wraith and he's literally eating the bodies. It became a really interesting notion to, well, what if they do believe that, but then we realize what is eating the bodies?
Eating the bodies,
and that at that time, would there have been orcs in the White Mountains, and you could imagine them coming out and scavenging on the bodies. That felt kind of natural, eh?
Yeah. Because there is a lot of times where, they specifically mention orcs being in the White Mountains and needing to be
I'll
driven
be
out.
interested to see what fans think about the idea that they are also pulling rings off fingers and collecting any rings, and I think it feels right.
I thought it was fine. Yeah. I mean, I didn't balk at that at all, because and it makes sense, that they would question, like, why are we doing that? And that Sauron would not give them that information, just give me rings. Oh, he's a jewelry fan. I don't know.
If they ever get to do an extended cut, there's a brilliant shot that we had to lose, unfortunately, to keep our PG rating. But Kamiyama actually began with them eating a hand.
Oh, wow.
Eating a hand, that's where that line comes from. Yeah.
Well, we did, Arty and Phoebe and I, when we were in New York, I asked them about an extended edition. So there's a seed planted there. I'm hearing is that there's some material out there, maybe in some form or fashion. We see those cut clips. Now you mentioned Helm and the wraith and the fear that he strikes into the Dunlendings, and this is a clip they actually, I saw they released online already, at least part of it. But I loved that whole sequence starts with the Dunlendings and their reaction to what's happening and setting the stage for, like you said, explaining why they would think that he's eating the bodies, and he's in this blizzard and you get his silhouette and everything. And it's very creepy. And I'm sure that, that's an intentional choice, rather than playing it all from Helm's side, which, when we see in the appendices, we get, it's kind of a historical account, we just kind of get the facts. So how to dramatize that, I'm sure was, a very conscious decision on your all's part.
I think part of telling Helm's story is also telling sort of, he's this mythical sort of hero character, and I think that part of the film is sort of playing into that idea, sort of the myth building around Helm. It's the rumors going around, so it did feel like the right time if we're going to do a POV shift. That felt like a good section for it.
There were certain phrases that really struck us, though, as well, in the appendices, hearing the horn in the deep.
Yeah.
That conjured such strong imagery for us that we knew we really wanted to lean into. So that's part of it as well.
Yeah. He bore no weapon, and no weapon could bite him. We changed to smite because why did we? You changed?
It was you.
Oh, it was me. Oh, yeah. No, you put the line in, and you found the place for the line.
I put it in as it was.
And yes, you did. So you can blame me. I think smite just felt, it was one of those moments where it just felt like bite in terms of Professor Tolkien's world makes sense to me. That use of that in the, it's a slightly more archaic use of the word bite. Mm-hmm. And so, therefore, staying archaic but making maybe a little more sense seemed to go to smite him.
Yeah, it's all of that imagery. You start yourself to feel a trepidation towards Helm in the text. The stalking, like in the clad in the white, and I mean that's sort of how we approached it anyway.
And really early on, once we knew we were doing anime, that particular sequence was one of the reasons why this popped into my mind, because of the nature of that slightly ghost story aspect. We had an instinct that would work really well. Mm-hmm. But actually, it was one of the harder bits to write.
Definitely.
There was a fair bit of rewriting going on there.
Yeah, and condensing stuff and things like that. But I
just love the idea of sort of extending this gothic horror idea of instead of a castle, it's the Hornburg, and extending that sort of the ghost story. It just felt, I don't know, it's a very cool section of the film.
And at least for Arty and I'm not sure about you, Phil, but that was some of my favorite stuff, to see how Kenji Kamiyama realized those moments. Because it's one thing writing Helm in the state, but how was he going to visualize that? And that was really cool to see how Kamiyama approached those moments.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, like I said, it was one of my favorite parts of the movie, just as a book fan, because you read it and like you said, I totally get what you mean when, there's certain phrases and certain moments that just kind of grab you in this story. Aside from the helm and stalking like a snow troll and everything, what are some of the other moments from the story in the books that kind of grabbed you guys?
I thought the character of Wolf was really interesting, especially once you delve into him as an antagonist. And I think what we found as we went along was that, he was not without cause. Mm-hmm. The Rohan's treatment of the Dunlendings, and he has Dunlending blood in him, was not always that honorable.
Yeah.
Colonizer anyone?
There's arrogance, that you could argue to the Rohirrim for sure.
Yeah. And so there was that aspect of it. He's been banished from his homeland.
Right.
There was a sort of always felt like in the story that there was a moment where, if you take that notion that the King of Rohan, very differently to the line of Gondor, the line of kings in Gondor, that has a feeling of a divine right to it. Whereas with the Rohirrim, what you're dealing with is we delved into that, the Norse traditions and the Anglo-Saxon traditions that those kings ruled by consent. They only ever ruled by consent. And what was interesting about that was that then you had, it immediately made Helm's grip on that throne more tenuous. Do you know what I mean? And so that was immediately interesting to have that. And then to go further with that, you have, which makes the story more and more exciting as you look at it. And then you have this young challenger, Wolf. There was potentially a moment in which Wolf could have genuinely challenged for that throne and defeated him. And then if he had drawn the peoples back together, it would have been a completely different historical story.
Yeah.
But he obviously chose a different path. Now, Tolkien doesn't tell us that. But what Tolkien does do, Professor Tolkien does say, is that he is defeated. So, which told us that Professor Tolkien, I don't believe, saw that character as a legitimate king. So if he was not legitimate, what part of the story do we then need to tell, and how do we expand out on that and make it feel,
Gotcha. Yeah, so saying that, Wolf would not have been a legitimate king is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm saying Professor Tolkien kind of lays that breadcrumb, because if he, he would have told it in a different way. But no, Wolf is defeated, and it feels like that order is restored when Fréaláf the thing. So that tells us that Wolf was not a legitimate king.
Right. Yeah.
But what was it about him? What was it about him that was wrong? And that means that he must have therefore not made good choices.
Yeah. Yeah. And we definitely see.
And the siege on Helm's Deep tells you in and of itself, the siege of Helm's Deep
informs a lot.
It informs a lot because he shows no mercy.
Right. Yeah. Now it's you bring up mercy, and that was one thing, and I don't want to get too much into the ending of the film to spoil anything, but one of my favorite lessons and themes that we see pop up in Tolkien is pity and mercy. And in the films we got these great moments, particularly around Gollum, and then in the books, we have in the Scouring of the Shire, the one that always blows me away is Frodo just giving mercy to Saruman repeatedly after him trying to kill him repeatedly. And without giving anything away, though, pity does come into play, and it kind of caught me off guard, but in a really good way, because I was so glad to see that theme, pop up, even if it's in a relatively small way, toward the end of the film.
Yeah. Yes. And I think you've just framed it perfectly, and we should leave it because I think
okay.
I mean because I think that's perfect, and I think you're right, you're absolutely right, and it was what we were reaching for, and let's see how people let them find out how that plays out, that particular thread of story.
Yeah. And I will say, I moved on from the wolf thing, but I was also going to mention, I totally get what you're saying with the, he's not wholly, he's also wronged by the situation. Like it escalates very quickly, which is something in the books. It's like they're insulting each other and then boom, Fricka's dead. And it's like, oh, okay, that just happened. And I thought it was fun in a very dramatic way. And, capturing that in the film. But yeah, you get Wolf, who, if we were talking about Isildur, he'd be talking about Weregild, what's he going to get in recompense for the wrongful killing of his father? So I think that's interesting, and we don't have to, go too much deeper. I think we've covered that. I don't want to spoil anything again for folks. Now we see General Targ is a character who's kind of like a right hand to Freka and Wolf. I'm curious where the name Targ came from.
That came from from Will and Jeff, actually, when they very first were beginning. And I had a little bit of an issue with it, to be honest. It didn't feel particularly Tolkien-esque to me. But I also at the same time felt like they needed to find their way into the story, and I didn't want to continually say no to the ideas, to their offerings. And also the more that I listened to it, the more that I sort of was looking at Old English and stuff. It's not wrong, it's not necessarily wrong, but yeah, that's where that came from.
Okay. I was just curious because that was a distinct one.
I went looking to see if Professor Tolkien ever used the word general. I don't think he does. I don't think he ever terms anyone a general.
Is he called? Sorry, I might have assigned that role to him. Maybe he's not general.
No, he is. No, he's called.
Oh, he is. Oh, okay.
No. What I meant was when Will and Jeff called him General Targ, I was that was one of the things that felt slightly off was general. I don't think that's actually particularly a term. I could be wrong. So let's see in the comments if no, because I'm happy to be wrong. If he does,
I'll do
fantastic. Yeah,
I'll be searching all my Tolkien Kindle books after this, doing that search function. It'll take a while. There's a lot of Tolkien books on there. But now, Phoebe, you wrote the end credits song, and Middle Earth has a pretty fantastic track record of end credit songs. Personally, I love the song. I think it sounds great. I love that you worked in Old English as well. As soon as I heard it, I was like, okay, that sounds Old English. I need to find out what the words are, what it translates to. So tell us about the process of writing the song for Paris Paloma.
That was the best experience of my life. I'm so glad you like it. I got to work with David Long, who has become one of my favorite people on the planet. And yeah, I sort of conceived of the first thing that came to me was wanting a desire to use Old English. And I was thinking of the imagery that I had sort of seen just as sketches at that point in the film. And one of them was Héra on the mountaintop with the wind in her hair. And then also speaking to what Arty was talking about, which is this sort of, she is a leader who is focused on bringing her people home. And so those kind of thoughts came together. You Are the Wind that will carry them home was the beginning point. And seeing You Are the Wind, Hey, I Say Wind is She is the Wind. And so that was the jumping off point. And then working with David Long, he is one of the most fantastic humans on the planet, one of the most talented people with absolutely zero ego. And he just embraced me, who has very little experience coming into music, the music side of things, but never made me feel that way. And he just built up together. We just threw in the kitchen sink, honestly. But he had such a handle on what would feel right in the world because he's an old hand at this. He's done so much of the diegetic music, right? And some of people's favorite stuff. You know, he worked on Misty Mountain songs, so that was like such an honor to get to do that with him. And then Paris Paloma came along as the final piece of this collaboration, and she's
magic. She's just magic.
Pure magic. Yeah. And again, I mean, I was talking to, you know, like as a young woman, the sense of self that she has at the age that she is just extraordinary. And like she has this beautiful vulnerability in her own songwriting, and she brought all of that to the table for us here. She was such a strong collaborator on this. And then she opens her mouth and she sings, and it's just like, God.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
she's also just a super fan of Tolkien. And
I saw that.
Genuinely really loves the world.
So genuine. Like when we all stepped into the room together, that was so much fun when we first met her, and we could see that it was real, you know, and she just had such a pure joy and excitement that she brought along with her, which was so good. That's always the cherry on top. That was so cool.
There's an amazing photo of Phoebe at the piano. I think you took it, Arty. There was in Abbey Road. There's Phoebe at the piano, and Gaia came in for the recording. She popped in while you guys were recording. So there's Phoebe, Gaia, and Paris in this photo. And I looked at it and I thought, oh my God, there's our film. You know, these three young women who played, and of course, yes, Arty's there, of course. But no, what I mean by that is in terms of the character of Héra, especially, I felt like that was.
Oh, Paris was a beautiful. She really understood. Like she approached it as a storyteller, which was so cool. She really went to the film and she really looked at the character and resonated with her, and that's what made it feel so authentic. I think she brought all of that herself. She's just wonderful.
Can I say about Dave Long? He is such a dude. If you've seen the music video, that is
that's him on the caipira.
Caipira, a 12-string viola caipira.
Yeah, he had the sensibility that he had for the music was just so natural to him, and he brought just so much. He built it into this the epic thing that it is.
Yeah, and Arty, I understand you were involved a bit in the music video. Filming, correct?
Together.
So it's a real family affair making these films. Everyone pitches in. Maybe it's a Kiwi, New Zealand
I think it
filmmaker process, but it's everything's very collaborative, and I don't know. It was an incredible couple of days. It was very, very special. Yeah. The whole film really is just, and it comes from Fran, Pete and Phil, just the way that they've approached making all of these films. It's sort of super collaborative, super sort of family orientated, and that extended flying to London, sort of completely separate of being in Wellington. That energy was over there in the recording of the song, and strangely, I mean, even sort of working across Zoom largely over lockdown with the team in Japan, Kamiyama and Joseph and Jason, that energy extended even in that relationship. So I don't know how you guys have done it, but it's sort of infectious. And it's just this super collaborative, loving, like everyone's there for the right reasons. Everyone's passionate, everyone's supportive, and it's the coolest part of making this film was being able to work with a lot of the people who worked on the original trilogy, and just seeing how after all these years, all these projects, just how in love with the world they still are, and how much they care about it so deeply. Like every decision is there to serve the movie. It's not about egos. I'm right, you're wrong. Everyone's sort of working back and forth just to try and create something special. It's been just such an honor to be involved in.
And honestly. Being in Abbey Road, that was so cool. All these echoes, so cool. Pete Cobbin and Kirsty Whaley.
Oh, what a team! Like
mixed the song with the engineers recording. They were a dream, honestly. Like to place us in their hands was just like we were so lucky. But it was all those echoes that were so for Arty and I so cool to feel.
Yeah.
I mean, the music video, I was doing some of the BTS interviews, Matt, and I was like nearly in tears the whole time, because it was just like, there's this moment where I'm talking to people who I was watching in the extended sort of release DVD featurettes.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to them, interviewing them, and it's like, well, I was watching you, not long ago, and now I'm asking you about working on a film that I'm involved in. It has all these strange sort of, echoes. It's it's been a journey.
Yeah, I saw your image you shared on Instagram of you and Ian McKellen from Return of the King.
No.
21 years ago.
He
Yeah.
was a baby face,
baby.
little simple.
Am I not
And
still?
that's
I've lost my hair. I look more like a baby, if anything.
sorry, yeah.
I probably look more like a toddler.
And that's,
Goodness me.
It's Arty's sister Louisa in the middle. So to see the two of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, lots of strange moments. Yeah.
Now, we've only got a couple minutes left here. I have to ask because this is what fans like me do. We get really pumped about this film, and then in the back of our minds, we're also thinking to the future a little bit. Is there anything you can tell us about the progress on Hunt for Gollum?
Yeah, it's going well. It needs to go a little quicker. We need to pick up the pace, guys. I'm going to we're going back to New Zealand. I'm locking them in a room. So it's been fun.
Oh my
It's
God.
been so fun. Andy's the best.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Truly.
has such an energy about him.
Yeah.
Such an openness. He has such cool ideas
Yeah,
as well.
he
Like
really
he's going to nail this.
Yeah, he is. I'll give you a tease.
Okay.
Had lunch with an elf lord the other day.
Okay. I like it.
I'm not saying which elf lord. I'm saying an elf lord.
We can hypothesize, and we'll let the commenters do that for sure. But
Who would
I mean,
naturally fall into that story? I would.
I already have them ranked in my head of who makes the most sense. So, well, thank you guys so much for joining me and taking time out and everything. Arty, we didn't even get to this, but we'll have to talk about this later. Seeing characters that you wrote in miniature form made by Games Workshop, because I'm very much this one is Wraith of the Hornburg, Helm Hammerhand, Wraith of the Hornburg, which is a great title for a minifigure, by the way.
It's crazy though. Even working with those guys, it's just like literally everyone involved in this project has just been super passionate, caring, attention to detail. It's just
They're great, those guys.
Yeah. And Warner's, honestly, honest to God, Warner's have been fantastic. They really, really have. I'm not just saying that because I want them to keep making movies like this, but it has been,
true.
It's been genuinely true. New Line, Warner's, I don't know, maybe it's a legacy, the legacy of Lord of the Rings actually really does mean something to the studio. And so, they've been fantastic to work with as well. Yeah. Everybody go and see the film so we can make another one.
Yeah, get your tickets. I'm gonna order my tickets probably tonight. Take my boys to see it, and get a Hammer popcorn.
I was going to
bucket,
say, you just want to go get
that's what we do now.
That's what.
Arty wants one. You need to get one for Arty. He wants
I will
one.
get one. Yeah, I'll get one for you, Arty. If they don't have them down in New Zealand, I'll hook you up.
Appreciate it.
That's been so much fun.
We love talking to you, man.
Yeah,
Thank you
any
so
day.
much.
Blast. All right, thanks, guys.
Namaste.
Bye.
Namarie. So, Kenji, we talked a little bit about at New York Comic Con, but one of the things now that I've seen the film, I wanted to ask. There's certain things. I talked with Jason DeMarco about this a bit at New York. There's certain things animation can do that you can't necessarily get away with in live action. So I'm curious, as an anime director, what's something from this film that you feel like is uniquely a treat for viewers because it's in anime?
そうですね。いわゆるこのアニメならではっていう表現はあまりこの作品では使っていないんですけど、逆にアニメでこんなことを絶対表現しないっていうね。例えば、2000機の騎馬兵をアニメで描いてみようとか、それと対峙するダンレンディングの軍勢をね、アニメの一つの画面の中でぶつかり合う戦闘を描くとか、アニメだとどちらかというとそれは不可能なんで、アニメ的な表現というよりはそもそもあまりトライしてうまくいかないかもしれないっていうような表現を、でもアニメであえてやることで、凄みが生まれてきたりとか、 あとはそもそもアニメが得意としてる部分っていうのは、こう、ありえないことを、こう、現実、ありえないことをこう、あたかもあるように描くのがアニメのいいところなので、それでいくと、後半、そのヘラがたった一人で軍勢に立ち向かっていくっていう、これはライブアクションでもう撮ることはできるだろうけれども、そのヒロインの活躍みたいなことを説得力を持って書いていくっていうのは実写でもすごく難しいところだと思うんですけど、それをラストシーンで、こう、ブリッジタワーの上で戦う女性、ヒロインのアクションとか、そういったことっていうのは、この作品ならでは、アニメーションならではの良さが出ているシーンなんじゃないかなと思いますね。
Yeah, I was thinking of the sword fight between Héra and Wolf as well. Obviously, there's the part with her riding on the horse first, but then the action scenes of them sword fighting, it feels very fluid and visceral. I was really my attention was really drawn by that, as it felt to me like that was unique to anime as well.
Thank you so much.
Another moment that I talked to that I heard Jason talking about, I think it was at New York Comic Con, was anime has a tradition of monster versus monster, and that's how we ended up with the Mumik versus the Watcher moment. What could you tell us about that scene?
はい、そうですね。脚本を書いたフィリッパもそうですし、すごくウォッチャーとムマクまあそこにヘラも絡むんですけれど、アクションというのは最初の見せ場になるので、すごくまだ絵ができない脚本の段階でもうすごくこだわってたシーンだったんですね。みんなが当然見たいと思うから、そのシーンを絶対に作ろうっていう話だったと思うんですけど、ただ実際ウォッチャーの動きはですね、アニメでも本当に難しくて、あれを描けるアニメーターっていうのはそんなにいない中で、誰も見たことのないモンスターの動きを見事にアニメーターが表現してくれていて、実写の、ウォッチャーも、実写でもあれはすごく大変で、だから水の中から本体の姿見えないですよね、実写はね。でも、アニメーションなんで、我々はそこもチャレンジしようっていう形で、水の中から、本体、この目と口がある部分まで、少し出てきて、で、どういう呼吸をしてる、エラの下側にある、呼吸してる器官みたいなのも一瞬見えたりするっていうですね。怪獣、日本だと怪獣って、伝統的にみんな大好きなのでね、そういうのを表現したいんですけど、実写版でも姿を現さなかった、ウォッチャーの体の部分っていうのもちょっと見せようとかですね。巨大なムマキルを飲み込んでしまうぐらい、未知なる、怪獣なんだっていうようなことを相談しながら、シーンっていうのは作ってました。だからみんなやっぱりクリエイターは、そういうシーンを作るのはすごく好きですよね。
Now let's jump right into it. So Gaia, after seeing the film, I really like what they did with the Shield Maiden lore in the film, and how it's kind of mysterious, and it's this very Anglo-Saxon feel to it, the way it's like, if all else fails, like we're grabbing up our swords and fighting to the death kind of thing. So what did you think, as playing Héra, having this Shield Maiden lore, and what did you make of it?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. Of course, we're introduced to Éowyn as a Shield Maiden, and to see the ancestry of that was really special. To see sort of the origins of where her power and ferocity and tenacity comes from was wonderful. And I think Héra's a sort of different generation of Shield Maidens compared to someone like Olwyn. And so I think it was just really beautiful to have that backstory. And I hope that people will be able to see the similarities between Héra and Olwen within the Shield Maiden lore.
Yeah. I noticed one of the things that stuck out to me, because you everyone knows of Éowyn, of course, and so you're kind of going in wondering, like, how is Héra different? How is she not going to come across as like just being Éowyn 1.0 or whatever,
Yeah.
One of the things I liked, and I mentioned this when talking to Philippa, is that her instinct is just to help out in any way possible, whereas Éowyn seems like she's ready. She wants to fight. She wants to wield a sword, whereas Héra, like, she actually starts off saying, like, let me be a messenger, like, just let me do something. So in what ways did you feel like Héra is different from Éowyn?
Well, I think, we meet Éowyn as a fully formed woman who has all of her morals sorted. She knows the path that she's on, whereas Héra has to forge hers. I think that she, through what she experiences, stays compassionate and uses her vulnerability as a source of strength. She doesn't allow the fear to take her over as it does Wolf. And I think the maturity that you see, in her throughout the film, and the way that she begins as, Helm's tearaway child, and ends the film with the potential of being the leader of Rohan. I think that's it. It feels like such a huge leap, but then when you watch the film and when we read the script, it all makes perfect sense, and it's always her treading her own path whilst remaining, ferocious, tenacious, and fearful. And I loved that.
Yeah. Now, Laurence, you play Fréaláf, which is a character I was very intrigued to see in the film, because we don't get a whole lot of him in the trailers, and without getting too spoilery for a book that's been out for like 70 years, he is the ancestor of Theoden. Did that come up in conversation, or like was that at all a source of inspiration, knowing that you have this connection?
This ancestral line was always something that we took into consideration, but you kind of have to, as fascinated by that as you and I would be as fans of the lore and fans of all this, when you go into the booth and you're given the script for this standalone story, you try and keep it to the side. Because you want to focus on what's been written in front of you by Arty, Phoebe, and Philippa. But the inner geek always wins out in the end. You can't help but start seeing these patterns, and then the Marshal of the Ridden Marks tells, that's my job too. And I couldn't help but think as character traits, there's similarities between him and Aragorn, especially in the Two Towers character arc. Where Aragorn leaves the story for a moment. It's kind of exile for different reasons.
And Éomer as well.
And then they stay true to who they are. They stay true to what they believe is right and what ought to happen. And then they have their time to deliver for their people and the people they love. They were all very inspirational. But yes, those links were very much made.
Yeah, I do like that Fréaláf is, seems like the level-headed one of the family a little bit. He's like, hey, Helm, maybe we should calm down.
Perfect. No, we have a saying now that we're just going to keep yelling at Laurence, which is be more like Fréaláf.
Be more like Fréaláf.
There you go. Well, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
I really enjoy talking to you, Matt. Thank you.